No record.
There we go. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for showing up. Today's meeting is consistent with AB 361 regarding teleconference meetings. Norma, could you do the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have Chair Jaime Patino,
Here.
Board Member Trisha Monroe.
Here.
Trisha Monroe, sorry, is Trisha or Trish?
Oh, Trish, absolutely.
Okay.
Not ever Trisha.
Thank you. I had it written down wrong. I apologize. I'll correct that in the future. Board Member Sean Kumagai.
Here.
Thank you. Board Members Kate Harrison and Aaron Tiedemann have yet to join. So I will promote them in when they do come, but we do have a quorum, Chair.
Did we miss anybody?
Okay.
I'm still on mute, sorry. Did we miss anybody? No? Okay, so next public comment. Is there anybody in the queue for public comment?
We do have someone who does want to speak, but any of those who are in attendance of the meeting today that wishes to speak under public comment or any future item, please raise your hand and you will be promoted in to speak. I will call your name at the time that you are able to speak. So I have one person right now that I will promote in, Chair.
Okay, let's give them 3 minutes.
And this is Tom Kelley. Tom, when you're ready, you can speak.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Not many of you know me. I'm in Berkeley. I think Dan probably remembers our relationship going back to well before EBCE's formation, when we were actually trying to get a CCA launched in Alameda County. And two of the primary reasons we were, those of us who were advocating for a CCA, were to do a better job on carbon emissions and also provide competitive rates of electricity. In 2018 and 2019, EBCE did a pretty good job on their carbon emissions. They hovered around 100 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour of electricity delivered in 2019. And then in 2020, it shot up to 590 pounds, which is the absolute worst load serving entity delivering electricity in Northern California. Just as a comparison, PG&E is at 160 pounds. PCE and MCE are below 100 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour. And, given the disaster that we're confronting with climate change, and the fact, for me personally, the reason that I got involved in trying to form a CCA was because I thought we were really going to do a great job on carbon emissions. Well, we're not. And for whatever reason, the staff do not seem to be raising this issue with you board members. And perhaps, I don't know why the board itself isn't demanding some kind of explanation for why this is and how to get us back to at least where we were in 2018 and 2019. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. It's basically it's on you to direct the staff to get back to where we were trying to get when we formed the CCA in Alameda County. So thanks, and I hope to see something on an upcoming board meeting that addresses that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelley. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, Chair, we have Audrey Eichendos. I will promote Audrey right now. And Audrey, you are on and ready to speak.
Thanks very much. It's Audrey Ichinose, and I live in Berkeley, and actually I signed up electronically to make a public comment. So in the future, you might check that also that category in looking for public comments. So let me go into what I have to say. I'm a member of East Bay Clean Power Alliance and also the California Alliance for Community Energy, which is a statewide advocacy group. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I see from the agenda that the regulatory update will not cover this matter, so I will raise it here. And unfortunately, I cannot stay. But the issue I want to raise is one that I have raised in public comment at 3 previous meetings this month at the board, the executive committee, and the finance administration and procurement subcommittee. But I have not seen any response to this. The issue concerns utility bill affordability for ratepayers. With projections of steeply increasing utility bills, the CPUC held a 2-day workshop last month to hear from stakeholders and many others on how to keep bills affordable, especially for low-income ratepayers. Coverage of the first day by the San Diego Union Tribune cited EBCE's Melissa Brandt as proposing that, in quotes, public purpose programs be funded through state tax revenue instead of electric utility rates. Those programs were described as including energy efficiency plans, as well as care and FARA programs. Now, the implications for EBCE, if such a change were affected, really need to be discussed. They're pretty fundamental. What would the advantages and disadvantages for EBCE programs and objectives be, for example? How would it affect our fuel switching efforts in our service territory? And most importantly, would it weaken EBC's commitment to social equity and impair its ability to act? And actually, just as an example, to cite what may happen is, or close off the possibility of happening. Tom Kelley, I heard his comment, and he made a comment at a previous meeting that was really interesting. He cited the Clean Power Alliance, which is the name of, I think, California's largest CCA in Los Angeles County, and how they were, they elected to move to 100% renewable and affected this change by financing it for low income individuals through their own membership. So it was really gave them independence to act as a CCA. So all of these questions, you know, they're pretty far reaching, and they need to be fully discussed before our regulatory voice is heard. The matter should be agendized for the next regular CAC meeting and board meetings. And I hope staff and board members can take action on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ichinose. Are there any other public comments?
I do not see anyone else with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, Norma, thank you. Can we have someone circle back to the two public speakers? Just see, just so they can get some follow-up. Okay, thank you. And the next item now is approval of the minutes from the October 8th, 2021 and February 2nd, 2022 meetings. So does anybody have any comments about the minutes? Okay, no, I will entertain a motion then to approve the minutes. Okay, Trish Monroe is making the motion. Anybody want a second? Okay, Sean, you seconded. There we go. Okay, so let's do a roll call vote.
John Kumagai,
Aye.
Trish Monroe,
Aye.
Chair Jaime Patino,
Aye.
and we have 2 members absent. Motion carries. 3 yes, 2 absent.
Okay. And the next item is proposed brand update. Who will be giving that presentation?
Hi there. This is Dan
Dan.
Lieberman, and I'll present. Do you have the slides available to click through, or? Okay, thank you, Norma. Yeah, thanks for having me. Annie Henderson is out this week, so I'll be presenting on the brand refresh. I'm Dan Lieberman, Marketing Director at EBCE, and this is really a preliminary high-level presentation on some thinking we've been doing on a possible brand refresh. So happy to share it and get your feedback. Next slide. All right. So this is an overview of EBCE's brand evolution. And as a brand, you can see our initial logo and sort of lower left there. We started with the basic, the need to inform customers about what we do as a service. And then over the 4 years we've been serving customers, it's evolved to driving calls to action. And when we launched, we had very few options for customers. I'm sure some of you remember, it was basically, you know, we had electric service and you had a few choices. And over that time, we cleaned up the logo a little bit. We cleaned up the look and feel. We added that hydro strip so that you can see that, you know, those are the primary sources of energy we're selling. And but we didn't do a complete brand refresh. It was really more like a logo cleanup job. There wasn't really much of a call to action in those early years. We didn't want to message too strongly about Renewable 100 because if you come out of the gates talking about a premium price for our service, then we were afraid people would think of EBCE as only having that premium service. So we really focused on general brand building and our 3 pillars of value, which are low rates, green energy, and local benefits. But as we roll out programs, we're focusing our marketing efforts on program marketing now, you know, with calls to action around adopting new technologies that are powered by renewable energy, such as induction cooking, heat pump water heating, and electric transportation and transit. So that's the direction we're heading. Next slide. And, you know, we can probably read these out loud. Here's some things we need to overcome. And at the upper right, customers give utilities roughly 10 minutes a year. Actually, I've heard 6 minutes a year from some other sources. It is very little time that customers want to think about their electricity use. So we need to keep the messaging pretty simple. And then there you can see utility customers just want the lights to work. They don't want to be wooed. In fact, 44% of energy customers say they have no interest in interacting with energy providers. And then the last is that, you know, people see energy as a commodity. So it might be hard, you know, they don't think of it as something where they need to take action. Customers want warm showers and cold beer. And really they want lower rates. And that's never been more true than now with, you know, PG&E's had 2 rate increases already this calendar year. Natural gas prices are very high and the economy is just not working for a lot of folks here. And low rates has always been the top preference of our customers that we've surveyed. And I think to date, our value proposition has worked because it's oriented around greener energy, low rates, and local benefits. Our opt-out rates are low, so that's a good sign. But we need to improve our brand recognition and switch our focus on engagement tactics if we want to meet our program enrollment goals and really transform the way people use their energy. We need to get people thinking about this more and taking action. So our focus going forward is going to be on the need to engage customers in a way that will result in program participation and not just trying to accept this limited amount of engagement that you see reflected in these stats here. And next slide. And this is just showing that, as staff, we're looking to transition EBCE from being a commodity brand, which we've been, on the left, that we provide customers electric service, to more of an engaging consumer brand, where it's a more interactive type of brand, and people understand that, we're trying to change the way that they use energy. So there will still be components of a commodity brand. That's our core function, right? Most of our revenues go towards procurement, but we think that it shouldn't be the primary focus of the brand necessarily. And next slide. And this is the last one, and I'm happy to get some feedback. So these are some steps that we're looking to take as we move forward toward a rebrand. And first, we're just soliciting feedback on this general notion that I presented today. And then later this month, Annie Henderson will share a plan at the board meeting around, the conceptual side. We'll work forward on this conceptual document around rebranding, and then do the visuals, after that's worked through, after the conceptual side is worked through, then, we have a good brand designer and a consultant on hand who's a brand specialist. So we'll move those components forward. And then later in the year, we come back with a proposal for feedback. And then after that, then implementation of the brand identity. So that's where we are right now. I'm happy to take feedback and share those with Annie when she's back in the office, and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, do we have any questions? I see Trish, your hand's up. Let's go with you first. Oh,
Yeah, so it's a small enough number. I'm not sure we should be doing hands, but sure. I figured I'd observe protocol. So let me just make sure. First of all, I think it's great. I think this move from we just provide stuff to, I can't remember the other word you used, but to sort of be engaged with and encourage people to be engaged with really speaks to the moment. As I'm thinking about what I hear from people and what I feel in my own self around issues of energy is I'm looking at a bright sunny sky and a yard that desperately needs water. I know we don't do water, but it's related, climate change. And what can I do to help? And I think that in as much as EBCE can use that, be the person, be the entity that I go to get help, so that I don't just feel good about, I don't know, taking, lowering the temperature for my shower or, whatever. But I'm actually have a path forward. I think that's enormously helpful. So that's where I see this going, and hopefully that's the comment. Does that sound right, Dan? I see you're nodding.
That's very helpful. Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's definitely sort of helping empower customers to take some control is definitely a part of this. So
yeah,
I'm taking notes. I'll share your thoughts with Annie. Yeah.
okay, I forgot to ask if there's anybody from the public that would like to comment. I'm sorry about that. Norma?
We do have one member from the public. Tom Kelley is wanting to speak. I am now adding him to the meeting. Tom, you are speaking. You have 3 minutes. I'm keeping a timer separate. I don't have it displayed yet, but Tom, you are ready to go.
Thank you. I didn't see the timer the first time around, so I don't know if I went over or not. Apologies if I did. There was one thing in Dan's presentation that I wanted to kind of challenge a bit. Ever since EBCE formed, they've done some surveys on what people are looking for in their utility provider. And one of the things that we always hear is that people want low rates. Okay. And if you pose the question to people just like that in black and white, do you want low rates? They say yes, But if you actually take a moment to explain to people the benefit of renewable energy, clean energy, in that question, the numbers on of people willing to pay more for their electricity go up significantly. And so what's happening today is not only are our costs coming down, and I'm going to mention this in an upcoming item on your agenda, but people are desperate for their local government and their energy providers to do more, because individually we can't do much, right? If you've got a city, before Berkeley opted up to 100% renewable, only 3% of the people in the city, Berkeley, California, had actually voluntarily opted up. It was the only way to get people up was to do it automatically. But people are demanding that kind of response from their local government. And this isn't, I think, if we were to switch our thinking about this rate issue, we'd actually do a better job of providing, hearing from people what it is that they actually want from us. So low rate, sure, but at the same time, people want a response to climate change from all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelley. Do we have any other comments from the public?
We have no other hands raised.
Okay, Sean, you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. New to this committee, so I understand this is a presentation on the brand, and I think it looks good. I think the website covers a lot of kind of what is talked about here already. We'll be interested to see kind of what the proposals are for moving further in that direction. But I would echo what Councilmember Monroe said regards to really what the value proposition and how that ties into some of the biggest challenges that we're facing environmentally. I think one of the best value propositions of East Bay Community Energy is locally sourced renewable energy projects, right? So if we can highlight that and talk about how people are directly contributing locally to addressing energy resilience and the issue of climate change, I think people, to the public commenters' point, that they will be willing to engage more with East Bay Community Energy. I would also recommend that we think about, when we do our brand update, the difference between residential customers and business customers. And I think that they have very different needs. I'm very interested in figuring out how we market to and brand things towards business customers, which are they typically are larger energy consumers, and they probably go through a much more deliberate process when deciding how their energy is sourced. So if we can figure out kind of a branding strategy separate for them, I think that might bear fruit. I would also, this is a larger marketing comment, I guess, but I would be interested to know in future updates how we're engaging with people who opt out. We have a lot of jurisdictions who are automatically opting people in, and they make a concerted effort over time to opt out, and whether or not there's a touch point with those consumers to find out maybe what the impetus was for them to make that choice and take that positive action to get out of EBCE.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Councilmember Monroe, I see your hand up again.
It is. So I just want to agree with Councilmember Kumagai, but also just speaking to the issue that Tom Kelley raised around about how people think about money and cost. One of the things I notice in general is that when we talk, what something costs actually mean? What are we leaving out of that equation? Both past or as we are generating the in this case generating the energy. What's not being considered as we're talking about cost, and how can we make our accounting for cost more accurate? And then I spoke a little bit about climate change earlier. What is the cost going forward? And do we want to defer that cost to future generations? Some people do, some people don't. But if we're not actually talking about those questions in general, we're not actually, we're ignoring, we're not talking about Bruno, just to use the phrase of the moment.
Okay, thank you, council member. Yeah, my only comments are, any entity needs to rebrand and tweak their brand here and there. We hear a lot of the great things that EBCE is doing, but the normal person out there really doesn't know. They just know their bill's going to be such and such dollar amount every month, and it's going to go up a little bit because it gets colder in the winter and more electricity probably in the summer. But we have some great programs. I was lucky enough to take my daughter, was it 2 years ago when the wind farm was being built north of 580 out there in the Altamont. I think we need to do some more outreach like that. My daughter was amazed about how big, these windmills look big, but once you're actually there to look up like that, or to stand one of the cylinders on its side, and it's still 7 feet, 10 feet higher than you at the base. I think we could do more to get more buy-in, start them young. And I recently, 2 years ago, I put the solar panels on my house. I love it. We've had 2 power outages since then, and my lights stayed on. And we just need to with the branding, we need to just keep doing our outreach. We're doing a great job, but we need to get to more people. And that's all I have to say. And I believe thank you, Dan, for the presentation. And I believe now we have, that's just informational. So we have the proposed amendment to rate setting protocol. Who will be presenting that? Kelley.
Yes. Hi. Good afternoon, Board of Directors and Subcommittee Chair Patino, members of the public that are here. Thanks so much for joining today. Yeah, my name is Kelley Brezovec. I'm a Senior Manager of Account Services. Also work with Dan a lot on Annie's team. And so today, just here to discuss a potential amendment to the rate setting protocol. In particular, I'd like to just talk through, there's a portion of the protocol that discusses a requirement for staff to host community workshops annually to present and discuss the value proposition. So the value proposition, just as a reminder, is today that's our Bright Choice discount. That's that 1% discount to PG&E and the Renewable 100 adder of 1 penny per kilowatt hour above PG&E's rates. So today, the protocol as written requires staff to host 3 community workshops to collect feedback, as well as a period of written comments. This is between the May and the June board meetings. The main meeting being when the annual budget, which then includes the any value proposition changes, that's first discussed, and then June when the budgetary item is voted on. So in between there, we have hosted these public meetings the past 3 years with fairly limited public participation. Looking at the memo for this item, I'll just direct you to it. In 2019, 2020, and 2021, EBCE staff received a total of 2 written comments and only 7 workshop attendees. Now, in 2019 and 2021, there were no proposed changes to the value proposition. And, oh, excuse me, it was the total of 7 was workshop attendees and 2 written comments was in the 2 years when there was no change made to the value proposition. There was no potential change made. The 1 year in 2020, when we were making a change to the value proposition, that was when we proposed the Brilliant 100 sunset and the Bright Choice discount change from 1.5 to 1%. That year, we did see workshop participation. We saw attendance we saw 15 attendees, and we had 8 written comments. So the proposal based on this experience is that in years when there is a proposed change, we maintain the requirement for the public workshop solely focused on the value proposition. And then we bring that back to those items back to the board meeting in June. We're requesting that be edited from 3 meetings to 2, especially now that we know that we can host these virtually and get great attendance. However, we're also looking to streamline the protocols such that if there is no proposed change to the value proposition, we wouldn't host these special workshops to basically tell everyone, hey, no change is proposed, keep on keeping on, and then not get any comments back. Customers and other members of the public do have the ability to participate in public meetings, as we've seen here today, as well as our May and our June meetings. And staff would, in lieu of hosting these special workshops, do a little bit more additional outreach, via our normal social media and other channels to encourage that public comment. So that's the proposed change. I'm bringing it to you today for some discussion prior to bringing it to the board later on this month for a potential vote if your response here is favorable today.
Okay. Do we have any comments from? Thank you, Kelley. Do we have any comments from the public?
We do have one member of the public that wants to speak. I'm promoting Tom Kelley right now. Tom, you are live and able to speak. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Norma. Sort of looking back at the previous presentation that Dan made, and then looking at this term of art that's used, value proposition, I have to say that it took me forever to really kind of understand what that meant. And I'm pretty sure that most of the public wouldn't really appreciate what exactly that means. So I think maybe one of the things we could be doing is actually speaking in plain English. We're talking about rates and how they're set. What I'd like to say about this, I see in the presentation that was online that we're basically moving forward with rates that maintain this 1% discount to PG&E. And yet, it's also noted in the slides that the PCIA charge has dropped, I think it's 30 or 40%, one of the two. And PG&E's generation rates has gone up by 30 or 40%. I've got those numbers switched, but it's 30% for one and 40% for the other. So if you think about it, our cost, the ratepayer costs has come down on the PCIA side. And the generation rate now, if we continue with this value proposition the way we've been doing it, is going to increase rates to EBCE customers. So my question is, why are we doing that? Why aren't we looking at what the actual costs of our own generation are and the PCIA and charging that amount to our EBCE customers? Looking at the other CCAs in Northern California, all their rates are falling. PCE over on the peninsula is offering a 5% discount on their default product, which is 100% carbon-free, 50% renewable, 50% hydro. MCE just announced their rates, and their 100% renewable is actually cheaper than PG&E's default product. So what are we doing here? I think we need to take a step back and, as a board, insist that we start building our rates around our actual costs rather than tying them to PG&E. The CCA over in Monterey County has actually done that now, and they've actually developed rates that are completely divorced from PG&E and are actually set according to the costs of the generation and administration and all the other costs that are associated with running EBCE. So if we had a public discussion like that, I think you'd get a huge turnout. I know I'd be there, and I bring all my friends. So thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelley. Norma, are there any more public comments?
I do not see anyone else with their hand raised. Chair.
Okay. Councilmember Monroe or Councilmember Kumagai, anything else? Do you guys have any Councilmember Monroe?
Just because I can always comment on things. First of all, I don't see a need for discussing a value proposition or rates. I agree that using language to communicating to the public, using language that communicates to the public is a good idea when we aren't contemplating that. But previous point to the previous question about branding and education, using those moments as times to educate, as times to consider, what are the real costs? Where are we going forward? That does two things. First of all, it enables us to use that space that's pretty much open. And the second is that having a cadence helps maintain interest over time. And this could, having this as a regular schedule, a regular scheduled programming, so to speak, would not be a bad idea with what's in that programming changing depending on what the issues are.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kumagai, do you have anything to add?
So if there are no changes proposed and if we follow the staff recommendation to not hold a workshop, how would it be communicated out to the public? And would there be an item on our regular board meeting so that if people had a comment about rate setting, they'd have an opportunity to provide comment?
Yeah, would you like me to answer that?
Yes.
Yes, so the value proposition, the rate setting is part of the annual budget setting process, which is discussed at the May and the June board meetings. So community would have opportunity to discuss, to bring their feedback to both of those board meetings, as well as any other written comments that they choose to send into the board. And what was your other question?
How we would communicate to them about
Yeah, so we do have a mailing list that we've used in the past to send out information about these workshops. So we could use that same email list to send out an update, reminding folks about the public meeting, those public board meetings, to let them know that the budget is being discussed at those meetings. We also have robust social media channels as well. So I think we would use both of those channels to remind folks of this opportunity to learn more about our budget and rate setting, as well as to participate in a public forum.
And to the public comments point, if there was feedback of that nature around how we do rate setting, I mean, if there's no changes in our rate setting, then there's no changes, but maybe people think we should change, like the commenter mentioned, and what is the channel for them to be able to discuss those types of ideas?
Yeah, I think any of our public board meetings is the place to do that. Potentially there's an upcoming finance subcommittee. That would be a place that's, a more intimate setting like this one, where, items pertinent in particular to the budget could be discussed, or also, our monthly board meetings. The interim board clerk can correct me on this, but I do believe we also accept written comments at any point, and those can be submitted as well. So there are ways to get in touch with us. I mean, someone can find my email address if they really wanted to, though I do recommend using the formal board channels so that everyone can hear their comment.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember Kumagai. Yeah, Kelley, there are a few avenues. I mean, we have this meeting, finance meeting, as you said. We also have the CAC, That could also be
Oh,
a
yeah.
vehicle. Our regular board meetings, we have an email on the contact us portion of our website.
Yeah.
If they have any comments, but I have a question. Would there, if, let's say we were just generating so much renewable energy on our own, would there be could there be an instance where we would break away from that default percentage under what PG&E is charging, as Mr. Kelley had stated earlier? Would there be, or would we always be tied to that?
If Howard wants to answer that, if he's on the line, I'd welcome his his opinion on that. Otherwise, I'll defer to the fact that yes, we have various options, and I'll let Howard answer that one.
I apologize. I was multitasking there. Would you mind repeating that question?
Would there ever be a time, let's say we were doing great with generating on our own, and would there be a time where we could actually set the rate? It wouldn't be tied to PG&E. It could actually be lower than what our percentage is now.
Absolutely. I think we're in this planning stages right now of a cost of service type pricing methodology. And that's something that other CCAs have considered. Some are in the process of, some are a little further along. And so that's certainly our goal, I think, in the coming years. I think we're still doing quite a bit of analysis and modeling on our cost structure and how to actually apply that. And ultimately, that is certainly our goal, is to unpeg from PG&E and be able to, price and structure our rates more independently to both manage the volatility of what we see year to year, as well as allow us the ability to price according to our cost of service and our own sort of reserve goals and targets. And obviously, if you combine all of those factors, and that can be at a more competitive, lower rate than PG&E, then yes, that's certainly an option.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think Mr. Kelley brought up a great point, because I think it would make people want to buy in and stay with us even more at that point. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments? Okay, if not, I
We
guess
do not
we'll
have
go-
any other public comment.
Oh, thank you, Norma. I didn't see you there. Okay, so the next is a regulatory update.
Yeah.
Todd, is that you?
Everybody. Ms. Clerk, do you have a slide deck, or do you want me to pull it up and drive? You.
I got it.
Deck is a little bit grandiose for what's really just one substantive slide. So again, good afternoon. I'm Todd Hedman. I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs for EBCE. And if we cut to the one substantive slide here, I wanted to present just on two issues today. Next slide, please. Thanks. NEM 3.0, because it's been such a hot button issue, and the board has taken a real interest in it. And frankly, the update here is really just to say that there's not much of an update. The California Public Utilities Commission had issued, the assigned commissioner had issued a pretty controversial proposed decision, which many CCAs, us among them, had taken issue with. That particular commissioner actually left the commission, and so with her departure, the proceeding basically ground to a halt. And there had been a plan for an oral argument. PUC canceled that. There was a scheduled vote on the proposed decision. The decision was held, and now we're in a holding pattern. I think the expectation is that there will be an alternate decision coming out of the commission, but there's no timeline for that to happen. And so here we sit. So that is NEM 3.0. And if anybody wants to discuss that more, if some additional background on that would be helpful, happy to provide it. I'm sort of assuming you guys are familiar with the controversy around that, so I haven't gone into it in depth, but can if that's helpful. The other issue that I wanted to raise with you guys is the PCIA, everybody's favorite. And Mr. Kelley alluded to this earlier. But the new rates for both PCIA and for PG&E bundled customers went into effect on March 1st. And the upshot of that was that the bundled rates went up a lot and the PCIA went down a lot. And those things are always going to move in inverse lockstep because the driver for them is the same. It's essentially a miss in how PG&E forecast the rates for a given year. And over the last year, we saw a big spike in the cost of energy. And so what that meant was that PG&E was not collecting enough from its bundled customers to cover its energy procurement costs. And relatedly, was recovering too much through the PCIA because the generation assets that it had were actually worth a lot more than it was forecasting. And so come this year, they have to collect for that under collection from their bundled customers, and they have to give back some of what they over collected for the PCIA from the prior year. So that's why we are seeing the big changes that we are seeing, and it's essentially offsetting some of the losses that we were incurring last year because we were overpaying on the PCIA. And relatedly, just as PG&E's bundled rate was too low to recover from their customers, we were incurring some losses in the prior year because we were pegged to PG&E's rates. So this is essentially a payback year for those misses in the forecast from the prior year. So the new rate went into effect March 1st and will continue in effect until superseded probably around the same time next year, maybe a little bit earlier, but we shall see. So those were the two items that I wanted to flag for everybody. Let me stop there, see if there were any questions or comments.
Okay, Norma, do we have any comments from the public?
We do have one member. I'm promoting up. Tom, you are unmuted and ready to go. You got 3 minutes.
Thanks, Norma. So these were this was the slide I was referring to in my previous comment. And so PG&E's generation rates have increased by 30%. And what that means to the cost of EBCE's electricity is absolutely nothing. We don't buy our electricity from PG&E. We buy it from PPAs and on the market and everything. It's got nothing to do with PG&E's rates. So when PG&E's rates increase and we follow suit, in a way, we're sort of gouging our customers because there's no justification for that increase other than what we call the value proposition. The second thing is the 40% reduction in the PCIA could mean between 1 and 2 cents a kilowatt hour reduction in the cost of electricity for residential and commercial customers. That's huge, absolutely huge. Now, Todd mentions that this will help make up for losses last year, but it's worth looking at EBCE's balance sheet. We haven't seen an audited balance sheet recently, but the last sheet I looked at showed very substantial reserves, I think in the area of $150 million. I mean, we did take a hit, but the hit wasn't putting us at risk or putting us in any danger. So again, I'm going to make the point. Our customers deserve cleaner power and they deserve a break on rates. And we are in a position to be able to do that now, rather than just standing by and applying this formula that we've applied since startup of just giving people a 1% discount on their Bright Choice product. So at least raise the issue with the board and the staff and ask for a complete report back on what other CCAs are doing, what their emissions intensity is, how much electricity they're buying from California and not, as we do, from Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, that doesn't really have, well, don't get me started on that. But most CCAs in Northern California are buying all their renewable power from generation sources within the state. So anyway, 30% increase at PG&E generation charge, 40% reduction in the PCIA. That should be passed along to EBCE customers. Thank you.
We do not have
Okay.
anyone else raising their hand to speak. Chair?
Okay, anyone from the board? Okay, I see no comments, or no hands up. So next is the legislative update.
Great. Can anyone hear and see me? I hope. Take that as a yes. I believe we have a slideshow for this one as well. Thank you. So I'm Alec Ward, Associate Policy Manager with EBCE. Thanks for having me on today. I'm here to give a quick update about the state's legislative process and also some of the bills that we've been watching. So for all but one of these bills today, we've only taken a position so far on one as a EBC board. So we're going to present later this month at the all board meeting formal positions, recommendations for some of these bills. But this is mostly just to give everyone kind of a flavor as to what to expect and what's going on at the state legislature right now. Right now, also, we're in the middle of a hearing process. So the status on the next couple slides might be changing a little bit, but this should still be a pretty good look at what's happening currently. So we can go to the next slide, please. This is key deadlines for the 2022 legislative year. As you can see, the governor submitted his budget request in January. Bills were introduced mostly in February, and now we're undergoing that committee work process and having hearings. The final budget, as you can see at the bottom there, must be passed by August. So this is the timeline in which we're functioning. Go to the next slide. So as usual, it's been a pretty busy year. I've got a handful of bills I'm going to walk through with you all. I'll do it relatively quickly so we can make it through in a timely fashion. But this first slide is the assembly bills that we've been most closely watching. And the next one will be the Senate bills. So I'll just go numerical order here. I'll start with the AB 1814, that's a Grayson bill. This would authorize CCAs to apply for funding through the PUC for transportation electrification programs. This is the bill that I was mentioning that we previously got board support for. So we had been working with the Capitol on getting this bill on good footing. But unfortunately, we did just hear that this bill has been pulled this year due to heavy opposition from other parties. For AB 1960, that's via Padua. That is one of our legislators. It's supporting more regional diversity of CPUC commissioners. We think this could help with affordability at the CPUC, so we may end up recommending support. We're keeping an eye and doing a closer read on this bill. For AB 2061, that's Ting. It requires data disclosure for EV charging stations. Cal CCA is currently support if amended. That is, they're working with the author to clarify a couple things about the bill, potentially tweak, and they're really trying to figure out who these new requirements would pertain to. So we're waiting to see what this final bill will look like through this amendment process, and then we'll determine a position. So it's a watch right now. AB 2070, that's Bauer Cahan. It requires an electrical corporation to notify a fire protection district at least 24 hours before a power shutoff, or it would face a penalty. Again, we're looking at this more closely. We think it may be able to help with reliability, so it could end up being a support recommendation from us. AB 2587, this is E. Garcia. It requires the PUC to open a new proceeding related to the procurement of firm zero carbon resources. Right now, Cal CCA, who we're working with closely, is reaching out to find more about the goals of this bill. So it's also going to be a watch until we can get more of that information. AB 2667, that's Friedman. This creates a new broad CEC fund for consumers that would like to adopt DERs, and it would incentivize those adoptions. This is another one that we're very interested in. We're learning about it now. We think that it could end up helping EBCE's load management programs and supplement. So this may also be an eventual recommendation, support recommendation later this month. And then there's AB 2703, that's establishing reliability standards for EV charging stations. Similar to the Ting bill, we're also working with Cal CCA to make sure that this bill would accomplish the author's intent without any unintended consequences. So we're going to end up seeing final language on this bill, but it could be something we're interested in. Then we can go to the next slide and do the Senate bills. Great. 833 is Dodd, SB 833. This is, it might look familiar to some, it's a revitalization of last year's SB 99 bill. That's a grant program to help local governments develop, expedite community energy resilience plans. Right now, we're working with this author's office to try to give CCAs a pathway towards participating in this program. So we're holding that as a watch until we can get some clarification there. SB 881, that is a MIN bill. It gives the CPUC authority to monitor and penalize non-compliance with the IRP GHG emission reduction standards. Cal CCA is currently opposing unless amended, and they're working with the office on this. Their standing is they believe that if you're going to monitor the GHG reductions, it should take place in the RPS proceeding as well, which is already a compliance proceeding instead of the IRP. So they see that as a more appropriate venue for this activities. There's also concerns about permitting the PUC to order procurement mandates. And there might be some preference towards instead penalizing LLCs, any load serving entities that are failing short of hitting these standards. So it's something that Cal CCA and we likely work through Cal CCA would want to work with actively on this office. SB 112, that's Becker. This is a technical bill that increases the reporting of counties on building decarb programs. We may work with the author's office to even further support our EBCE decarb programs to this bill. So we may end up with a support recommendation on here. So we're going to keep doing that outreach, and those discussions are ongoing. SB 1158. This changes power source disclosure standards to be more granular. Right now, Cal CCA is opposed unless amended. They're worried about the unintended consequences of this bill, especially around reliability. So they're working with the author to avoid any of these hang-ups and making sure that this bill could end up being feasible. SB 1174, that's Hertzberg. That is that the PUC cannot penalize CCAs like ourselves if they did everything right, but they weren't in compliant with RA requirements due to third-party delivery delays. We think that this, for obvious reasons, will be a helpful bill, so we may end up supporting it. SB 1287, that's Bradford. This would create really massive and potentially and likely impossible financial security requirements for CCAs. Right now, Cal CCA is crunching the numbers on this, and it's looking concerning, and it's actually Cal CCA's probably their largest opposition bill this upcoming year. So we will naturally be keeping a close eye on that and may end up being an oppose. SB 1482, this requires mandatory standards for EV charging installations in multifamily units. So right now we're trying to understand the impacts of this bill, reaching out to the office. We do know that the author has been receptive and has already taken some suggestions from the joint CCA. So we're going to keep working with the author on that one, but it will remain a watch until then. So that concludes all of the bills. As I mentioned, it's an ongoing process. They're changing, working closely with offices, but I appreciate you all listening. Look forward to coming back and sharing even more detail in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Norma, do we have any comments from the public?
do not see anyone's hand raised at this time. So no, we do not have anyone at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from council members Kumagai or Monroe?
I'll
Sean?
just jump in and say, oh, sorry. I was just going to say thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Kumagai?
Yeah, thank you very much for the update. It sounds like we're pretty much following the recommendations of Cal CCA. Do they have any kind of talking points, or do they put out any kind of fact sheets about these various bills and the positions that they're taking?
The offices themselves oftentimes put out one-pagers on these bills that we've started compiling, and I'm sure would be happy to pass along. As to Cal CCA's process for talking points and outreach, I'm not sure, but I can do some internal digging on that as well. This is my first legislative process with EBCE here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, it'd be helpful if they have any additional, talking points or anything on those bills. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the update. It seems every year we have a whole bunch of laws that are introduced, and it's hard to keep track of all of them. Glad we have people like you to do this for us. Otherwise, we couldn't do it with all the other things we have to do. So thank you very much for the presentation. And next on the agenda is committee member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future board agendas. Do we have anything for that? Council members Monroe or Kumagai? No? Okay. What, Norma, do you know when is our next meeting? Is that in June?
For this subcommittee,
Yeah, for the subcommittee?
I do not show anything on my calendar scheduled for May yet, so it could be June, but I'm more than happy to
It's
double
gonna
check.
be. Let me check real quick, because I want to make sure that we're
I can confirm that the next scheduled MRL meeting is June 3rd.
June 3rd. Yeah, I see it here on my
12
calendar.
to 2 Central.
Yeah. Okay, just 'cause I just wanted to make sure that Councilmember Kumagai has that, because he is new to the board, and I don't want to catch him off there. So okay, if there's nothing else, we're going for adjournment. And Councilmember Monroe, nice seeing you 2 days in a row.
Indeed. It's and this was a great meeting. Thank you all so much. This is really helpful.
Okay,
Oh,
have a
hold
great
on.
day. Oh, hold on.
I do see a Gabrielle Ruxin in the attendee. It looks like representing EBCE. Do I need to promote Gabrielle for any announcement? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check because I'm getting familiar with names. So I apologize for the interruption, but wanted to double check.
Norma, did you see the comment from Councilmember Kumagai to add him to the calendar for the June
Absolutely.
3rd? Okay,
Okay, I'll follow up
Thank
with that. Thank you.
thank you very much. And Sean, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, have a
Good
great
meeting.
day. Have
Thank
a
you
great
very
weekend.
much.
Bye-bye.